guest is someone who embodies discipline, courage, and transformation. A graduate of West Point and a former NFL linebacker, Caleb Campbell broke barriers when he was drafted by the Detroit Lions, becoming the first Army player in over a decade to be selected in the NFL draft. But Caleb's journey didn't stop at the gridiron. He served his country with honor, returned to pursue professional football, and ultimately chose a path of purpose that led him into leadership, personal growth, and mental wellness advocacy. Now, as a keynote speaker, executive coach, and thought leader, Caleb uses his platform to help others break through burnout, live more authentically, and lead from the inside out. It's an honor to welcome to the show Caleb Campbell.
Hey, how's it going, Caleb?
I'm doing great. I'm smiling. I'm genuinely smiling at just watching that little preview that you created there. So good.
Hey, I appreciate it. Yeah. I enjoy it. I own a media company, so it's
what do you not do? I've known you for 3 minutes and you have told me like 5 different things that you do. And I'm like, do we both have 24 hours in a day?
I gave up sleep.
There you go.
But I truly enjoy it, and it's been great trying to get other veterans podcasting and meeting people like yourself.
That's awesome. Well, it's an honor to be here today. Thank
you. Why don't we start with what brought you to West Point? What said, hey, I'm going to be an Army officer?
Man, I think there were so many different factors that played into that decision, and ultimately it was my decision. And I think from like the earliest of, my life that I can recall, there's always been this ingrained, probably similar to a lot of folks in the military, like this deeper desire to do something meaningful with your life, to make an impact, to maybe hopefully leave the world a little better of a place than when I first arrived. And so even though I didn't have the language to necessarily communicate that at a very young age, I quickly internalized that and felt that. And so for as long as I can remember, there's just that innate desire to do something special with my life. And so when West Point presented the opportunity to make that happen, to go to West Point, to play football there, and I visited West Point, I was just kind of like, wow, this is exactly what I have been feeling my entire life. And also, I grew up in the Texas Panhandle, and football was my first love. And the thing about growing up in the Texas Panhandle is that this isn't the story now, but when I was going through high school, no college coaches recruit in the Texas Panhandle because it's just a waste of time. Not for the lack of athletes, but they can go to Dallas, they can go to Austin, they can go to Houston, and they can find more than enough players. Like I remember my junior year, we played in the state semi championship game in Texas, and the opposing team that we played, all 22 of their starters, offense and defense, were going D1.
Wow.
I was the only D1 athlete coming off of my team.
I mean, you got to play with the Knights,
Yeah.
That is,
it was kind of like, I was just like, hey, West Point, you're really, what I want to do, but you're really kind of my only opportunity. So let's make it happen.
Well, I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of tradition and a lot of history from there. The Army-Navy game, I look forward to that more than the Super Bowl every year. And, I've only met one other person, as a matter of fact, where my last job where I was working, the plant manager there was a punter for the Knights.
Who?
And his name was Scott Lord.
Okay, very cool.
Yep. He his grow to fame was John Madden called one of their games, and when he punted the ball, he was 325 pounds as a punter, and when he punted the ball, his jersey came up, and Madden kind of circled his belly and said, "How big is this guy?" That was his call to fame.
Hey, listen, anything that you can do to feel more special in your life, I support this.
Absolutely. So, you go to D1. I'm sure that was exciting, and then now you're going to West Point, where you have a future as a soldier, an officer, and end up getting called to the NFL. I mean, life is pretty amazing at that point, huh?
One could say that. And I think that was like the big discrepancy in my life that created so much internal instability, is that I think the facade that I presented to the world was like, hey, look, West Point graduate, Army officer, just got selected in the NFL draft. Life is good.
Yeah.
But I think, behind the scenes, the truth of my experience is that, I felt like a fraud every day of my life. I was suffering from panic attacks on a daily, sometimes, on a weekly, if not daily basis. And I was constantly just like perfecting my ability to present this outward facing facade so that on the outside looking in, it looked good. Like I had it all together all the time, but that was rarely my truth. And I think that lack of inner congruency, inner alignment, my unwillingness to live really my truth in my life, it did create a lot of instability, to where I felt in so many ways my life felt just kind of like it was at any moment that everything could implode. And so as much as there was a beautiful moments to celebrate, as much as there were like, lifelong dreams coming to fruition, there was also a very deeper pain that was beginning to percolate and surface in my life.
Yeah, I could definitely relate to that. I mean, that sounds like the life of a veteran of nowadays.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think Brene Brown, the social scientist, the writer, researcher, I'm sure you might know her name. She's wrote so many phenomenal books. If anyone's listening to this, if you haven't read them, go read them all. And she says, like, what a culture values, we fear that we are not. And, like as a veteran and as an athlete, cultures, they value having it together all the time. They value hard work, perseverance, grit, determination. They value, perfection in so many ways.
Yeah.
And so I think we adopt who we think we need to be in order to really excel in this world. And when we remove ourselves from these cultures that we once were so ingrained with, it can feel so disorienting and so foreign. And here we are trying to live into the next season of our lives. But there's no real alignment between what we are presenting to the world and who we are, because we're still living based on who we think we need to be to show up in this world and to do our best work and to live happy lives. And if one doesn't know how to navigate that distance between who you used to be and who you're becoming, or what once was and what will be, like, it can be a very disorienting, frustrating, lonely, and a scary space. And so, yeah, I think you hit it right on the head when you say it's a story that a lot of veterans know, because I think it is.
Yeah, I could definitely see, I've had this theory for many years, way back when I first started podcasting. And I really, I played sports all through high school, and I went straight in the military because I got married, and I didn't go to college. I got married right out of high school and said, hey, I need a job. And that was back in 94.
Wow. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in around Lincoln, Nebraska, a small town outside Lincoln. Yep. And then I ended up, every time my enlistment was about up, I said I was getting out, and then I re-enlisted, and that went on for 20 years. And then I finally retired. But I've always had this theory, right? Because I know what it takes to play at a top level as an athlete. It's not just the physical side of it. There's a mental side to that too. And I kind of relate our modern day warriors to that level as well. And I've always kind of wondered if there was something that we could do to train mentally to prepare soldiers before combat to mitigate and help with some of the trauma after combat. And I never knew if there was any kind of relation to that. And I've reached out to several sports psychologists and stuff, and just haven't had any luck getting somebody on to talk about that. But you are absolutely right. You have to have the ability to navigate and have preparedness to handle those.
Yeah.
So when that,
can I speak to that real fast? I think that's
absolutely.
a really interesting comment. I think at the end of the day, like, what we prioritize, we value.
Yep.
And for a soldier, like, you are prioritizing certain characteristics and personality traits that, we are taught that we need to be in order to be a very successful, especially wartime soldier.
Right.
And I think all it takes, and I honestly think, I can only speak from the U.S. Army. I had somebody reached out to me earlier last year, and they wanted me to come to a post, and I'm not going to say any names, but they had, suffered from like multiple suicides in a really short period of time. And they were looking for somebody to come in and start like talking about mental and emotional health. And I said to them, listen, I would love for that to be me. It would be an honor to go and to create the space and to share my story. But it's doing them a disservice if you're having me come in to talk about mental and emotional health and throwing them back into a system that created the unrest in their mental and emotional health.
Yeah.
And so what we prioritize, we value, and what you prioritize is not their well-being. You prioritize their output as a soldier. And so the system has to change. And so the theory why I think you're probably getting pushback is you're trying to change a system that really has a hard or adverse response to change.
Yeah.
And so it's very simple from a leadership standpoint. Like if the system's not going to change, as a leader, how can we prioritize the characteristics or the qualities that allows us to have the mental and emotional flexibility and ability to bounce back, the ability to shift paradigms, to see things differently. And so what would it look like, especially like as a leader of a company or even a platoon or a leader of a family, to start prioritizing vulnerability, to start celebrating vulnerability, to start taking the moments when your child shows up and shares something a little raw and honest and saying, that must have been really uncomfortable for you. I know I'm your father, I'm your parent, but that was beautiful. Like your willingness to be a little vulnerable and to embody authenticity in that moment. You didn't even know what you were doing and you did it. Like, what if we celebrated that and prioritized that so that we can show them that we value that? Yeah. And somewhere along the way, we start to realize that this is what makes us not just a better soldier, but this is what makes us a whole person.
And I completely agree that by doing that, that doesn't make you weaker.
No.
It gives you you another tool in your toolbox. And there's times when you're in combat that you have to be able to turn off some of that anger. There is quality that comes from missions that spends time at orphanages and area gathering intel. And if you come in there with that harsh soldier, you're losing all that stuff. And I think it can be done both ways. I really do.
It can.
I did 10 years in the special ops community, and then, total from
you underachiever.
Yeah, I know. I did 68 months total from Bosnia back in 96, all the way up to when I retired in 2014. And I remember a colonel telling me something that, I didn't think. I was like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And this was right after 9/11. And I stood up and I said, our first battalion had already deployed. And I asked him, I said, hey, when is it our turn? When do we get our chance? And he looked at me and he said, watch what you ask for, because you might just get it. And I remember towards the back half of my career saying, when is it somebody else's turn?
Yeah.
I am tired, Yeah. None of us, at least I didn't think that this was ever going to be a 20-year war. And it was then when I retired, and when I walked away from the military, I was already planning my next step, and that was suicide. I was done living. At the time, I thought I wanted to die, and the truth was I just didn't want to live. And it wasn't that I wanted to kill myself. I just wanted to kill what was inside me.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that as leaders, we understand that side of the aspect, the mental side of it.
Yeah.
That's how you get ahead of the problems.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they can't deploy and they can't still be soldiers.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great conversation to have. And I hope, someday I get to have it with a psychiatrist. I don't know what they're about to do,
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing all of that. And, you're right. As a leader, the hard part, or what I'm like really pushing back on as I'm like engaging this work in real time, is like, I have come across a lot of leaders, and I'm not just talking about in the military world, but like inside of organizations that like want to see this growth inside of the teams that they are leading. But the truth is, like, you can't lead somebody where you're unwilling to go yourself.
Yeah.
You can't see
yeah.
something. You cannot see something that in which you are unwilling to see within yourself. And so if you want to create teams that are vibrant and alive and they have the emotional agility to move through the turbulent times of life with, less resistance and more ease. And if you are looking for teams that can, take pressure and transmute it into power, allowing them to expand what's possible, not in spite of it, but because of it, that requires you as a leader to become the type of person that can lead them through those changes. And that's where this is what it means to lead today. It's not about having the answers. It's not about telling people what to do. It's not about, forcing people to do things your way. It's about becoming somebody that's modeling what it looks like to be a whole leader.
Yep.
And that takes some courage.
Yeah. And it's not easy. That's what I told all my junior NCOs. The definition of a subordinate is the direct reflection of its leader.
Come on.
Whatever you give it is what it's going to show. You give it bad info, bad leadership, and that's what you're going to see when it becomes a leader. At the end of the day, it's not the subordinate's job to adjust how they learn.
Mm-hmm.
As a leader, it's your job to adjust how you teach.
That's good.
And I think,
can I steal that from you?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But it is so important. That's how you reach people.
Yeah. That's good.
If you come in with that dictators type leadership style, it's going to work for very few and only for a short time.
Yeah.
But you're going to miss out on all the great future leaders that just turn themselves off to you because you couldn't reach them.
Truth.
Yeah, it is true. So you get to the point that now you've got the opportunity to, the NFL says, hey, you're getting drafted and you're going to the big leagues. And it was what, the 7th round, right?
7th round.
Yep. And one of the few to ever get drafted.
Second and last one to ever get drafted.
Yeah.
And I didn't talk about that, but I feel like there's been such a divide. I got to be careful on what I say here.
Okay.
There's been such a divide between when West Point became a winning culture, I felt like, when I went to West Point, we didn't win very much, but there was still kind of like a knowing that we were standing on the shoulders of all of the previous grads that had come before us, the long gray line. Even as a football team, we were standing, I felt such deep connection to the people who came before us.
Yeah.
And there was an honor there. And then, I felt like, I don't know. I feel like I don't feel part of the Army football program anymore. I don't feel like, that's it's not like what it once was. And so, I mean, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just simply sharing my experience. And partially it's probably my fault just for not being as involved as I could be, maybe. I don't know. But I say all of that because I've been making a point to say, yeah, y'all have been winning. Y'all have had some great players, but I am still the last one to ever be drafted.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And, look, when I was growing up, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a
cool. Okay. I see that Joe Burrow's jersey back there.
Matter of fact, I can scoot over and there's Ken Anderson.
Okay, very good.
I have been a Bengals fan since the 70s when all they could afford was a sticker that said Bengals. So I know all about losing teams. But no, I've met a lot of great players from I met Chris Collinsworth, Anthony Munoz,
very cool.
Had to go to the Chiefs Stadium to see him, but probably the only guy wearing orange. It was a great time, and that was kind of, I think what helped me into the military was I did not like to lose. It didn't matter what it was, and you have to have that
absolutely
type A personality to be successful in a lot of different things, and I think you have realize that and are teaching that, through your speaking and everything else about, how to be successful and how to get through burnout and everything else. So when the drafting came and then the Army said, hey, we're not going to let you go. I'm sure the feeling wasn't, okay, thanks. I'm sure you were kind of upset. I know I would be.
Yeah. There was mixed feelings in that moment. And just to give you more context, like, my sophomore year at the academy, the new policy, I was the number sixth or seventh rated strong safety in all of college football. And so I had started getting a lot of publicity. And then next thing I know, I'm like, who is that guy with the jacket standing at the bottom is he a reporter? And I'm like, oh no, that's a scout for the Carolina Panthers. I'm like, why are they here? And they're like, for you, dumbass. And I'm like, wait, what? And so, like scouts started to come around, agents started calling. And it was just like a very surreal time of my life because, this has been my dream since I was just a young boy. But it was also, the way that I found acceptance, the way that I found belonging, the way that I felt significant in my life. And so much of my like love for the game, it wasn't just out of a pure love for the game. It was the way I survived in my world. And so my success was in a lot of ways like, who I was or who I was not. And so the pressure was always there. And, all through high school and then in college, I had the capacity to internalize that pressure and to use it as motivation, to use it as I'll show you, I'll prove you wrong. And I also come from a childhood that was just littered with a lot of pain. And so I, from a young age, learned how to internalize that pain and use it to fuel this new performance-driven mindset. And it served me well. It really did work. And so whenever I got drafted, I was on national television. And I remember Trey Wingo, he looked at me and he said, something I'll always remember. He said, Caleb, I need you to know you're not just another athlete. This is on national television. He said, Caleb, you are America's athlete. You're a West Point graduate. You're an Army officer. And now you're an NFL athlete. How does it feel?
Yeah.
And listen, I know that Trey, he meant well when he said that. It was like just a pure compliment. But I heard nothing good in that statement. What I heard is like, Caleb, you better have it all together all the time. Caleb, you better not fail. And Caleb, don't you dare be weak. And so like this moment, it amplified the pressure that was already there. And suddenly it was no longer about succeeding or not succeeding. It was about preserving an image.
Yeah.
I was now, seen as America's athlete, and I had to preserve and maintain that image. Meanwhile, the deeper story is if you see who I actually am, if you see the pain, if you see the insecurity, if you see, the stories that I've been hiding since I was just a young boy, you would quickly see that America's athlete is the furthest thing from my reality. And so I say all of that because behind the scenes, that pressure is just building and building and building. And I'm doing my best to outwork it, outperform it, and outlast it, just hoping that, one day it just dissipates. But as you probably know, and as so many people have experienced, like avoiding the internal discomfort of your life does not make it go away.
Nope. It compounds.
Yeah, it compounds and it amplifies. And so it was growing and growing and growing, and it really affected my performance. And so I got drafted and I went out to, Detroit for their off-season workouts. And I honestly played better football when I was 7 years old. I was just not able to. I also was moved positions. They took me from strong safety to linebacker. And if you know nothing about football, just know playing 10 yards off the ball is remarkably different than playing 3.5 yards off the ball.
Yeah.
And it was just a really slow transition for me. I didn't catch it because at the time, I didn't know the game of football very well. One, at West Point, football is the last priority.
Yep.
Two, I had such great speed for my size. I always relied on my speed to make up for mistakes. And so I never actually learned the game of football. I knew what to do as my position, but I never knew like why my role affects the, defensive end and the, defensive tackle that are in these positions. Like I never knew the bigger story that was being played out and the defensive structure of the game.
Yeah.
And so when I got moved to linebackers, that just required a completely new way of knowing the game. And it just affected my performance, which then amplified my fear. And then that fear, trying to hide that fear, trying to ignore it, it just completely started to pressurize my life to where, I was just a fragile person. And so when they told me I couldn't play, I'm talking like that morning, I'm getting ready to sign my first NFL contract and start training camp that afternoon. Wow. And my agent calls me and he says, "Hey, you got to get to the stadium. Something is happening. So I got to the stadium. I walk into this room. I scanned the room, and I quickly noticed that anybody that had somebody with the Detroit Lions organization, they're all seated around this table having a conversation about me. And when I walk in, I sit at the table, and there was this black conference phone sitting in the middle of that table. And on the other side of that phone, when I sat down, I said, "Caleb, are you there?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I'm here." And he says, that policy that you signed your sophomore year at the academy that was allowing you to play and serve simultaneously, because that's when the new policy, after my sophomore year, they came around and they said, hey, if he can play, we want him to be able to play. And they also provided, the Department of Defense also gave each service academy the option of adopting this policy. Navy and Air Force declined, to the best of my ability that I know, and West Point said yes. But when I got drafted, sorry, I'm skipping around a little bit. We're a nation at war. Yeah. And so a lot of people are saying you either loved and celebrated me or you hated me. I still have a letter, and the only reason why I'm bringing this up is because I'm writing about it in my book. But I remember shortly after getting drafted, I got a letter. I got tons of fan mail at this time, and I opened up this letter thinking there was another fan mail, and I opened up this picture, and I saw just a body of a dead soldier. And then the letter said, like, I just heard that on an interview with ESPN that, something about like how you're going to be undergoing the same sort of stress and pressure that your classmates are going to be, just on a different playing field, just on a different field. And he said, like, what about playing in the NFL is equivalent to this? And he said, like, I thought you wore a C on your uniform that stood for captain, but it's clear for you, it means coward. All you do is cut and run. And that was like a moment for me of just like, shit, like, this is so much bigger than I thought. Yeah. This is so much bigger. And now, like, there's open criticism. And at that time in my life, I had the emotional intelligence of, I don't know, a worm. And I didn't know how to handle that criticism. So all of these things, amplified the pressure, and so much of my identity and my sense of acceptance in this world hinged on you seeing me in a certain way, right? You seeing me in a positive way. And so when now I'm on the verge of starting my first NFL career, fully feeling the pressure of everything that's happened, and then they tell me that I can't play. Yeah. I was overwhelmed with joy. I was like, thank you. I didn't say this. I didn't say, right. Yeah, sure. There's like, I believe for every person, there's multiple parts that make up our person, right? There's multiple parts of us. And there was a part of me that was bummed. There's a part of me that was angry. Like I did follow all of the rules. I asked and I did everything that you required of me. And now you're telling me, with my contract on the table, my jersey hanging in a locker below us, like, it's over just like that. Like, there's nothing I can do. Like, you lied to me. Yeah. So there was a part of me that was angry. Then there was another part that just finally I felt like could exhale. Like I could move on in my life and not be found out, because I felt like such a fraud and imposter. And they went on to tell me that, like, you've got 2 years, you can go back and serve for 2 years. And if you can keep the game alive, if you can stay in the shape that it requires to play at this level, and also, get a new NFL contract, which I don't know if you know this, but getting a contract in the NFL, kind of hard.
It is definitely hard.
They said, you can make your way back to the NFL. And it was a tough decision to make, because I knew that this was going to cost me in a way that it has not cost me before. I knew that this was going to require me to push forward like never before. This is going to require me to dig deeper than I've ever dug before. And it was also going to require me to block out some of the voices in my life, voices from people that I truly cared, that were telling me just to hang up my cleats. Like, I gave it a good run. It's time to move on in life. And when it was all said and done, I decided that I wanted to give it a shot. And that's when I returned back to the military, fulfilled my requirement in the military, and was able to stay in shape and keep the dream alive. I'm talking like 5 a.m. PT sessions with your unit, as you know. Yep. We had, some military training in the morning out in the field, and then class and work in the afternoon. And then everybody else went home for the conclusion of their day. And I went to the gym for the next 90 to 120 minutes every single day to put in the work, to make sure that, like, hey, if the opportunity does come back, I will be ready. And sure enough, 2.5 years later, I found myself running down my first NFL field, playing in my first NFL game. That is awesome. And for the listeners out there that don't know, it's not like West Point is a normal college. The amount of pressure that is put on the students there is ridiculous. I mean, think of it this way. Like, think if you went to a regular school
And if you didn't finish in the top percentages, you didn't even get to pick what you did for the rest of your life.
That's so true.
That is exactly the way it is at West Point.
That's
only
so
the
true.
top percentages picked their MOS.
Yeah.
The rest said, well, you're not going to be infantry. You're going to be logistics.
Yeah. Have fun. And you know what? Have a good attitude.
Yeah. But that is, I mean, the pressure's there, not to mention you're drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah.
You know, now you have to learn the courtesies, the regulations, everything, you know, and it's not like basic training where we get broken in. It's 8 weeks of basic training, and then your advanced training, and then your NCOs will teach you the rest. You know, you have to have that shit together before you even get there.
Yeah.
You know, you walk into being in charge of a platoon of 50 people.
Yeah.
I walked into being in charge of cutting grass. There's a huge difference.
Oh, it's too good. Yeah, it is definitely drinking from a fire hose. And I think the hard part is like when you go to West Point, you know, like your prefrontal cortex is barely fully formed.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, so much of what I teach in like a one-on-one coaching is that like all of us have a survival self. Yeah. And this is the self that we were taught we needed to be through conditioning, through pain, through our stories, through our experiences. And all of these let's call them variables. They created what is we know as our survival self in life. And our survival self is built for one thing, to survive. Yeah. But surviving your life is not the same as living your life. And oftentimes, like the invitation that I'm helping people lean into is like, how do we, I like to call it your sacred self. Like you got your survival self and you got your sacred self. And for you to become, and before you to step into a new way of living and a new experience in life, it requires a new you. And so we were going to have to do the work of shifting from your survival self into your sacred self. And our survival selves are created to protect us at all and any cost. And so even at West Point, you know, I'm fully operating in my survival self that has internalized so much pain and discomfort and shame and fear. And I use them as protection mechanisms. My life is very volatile. I have a serious anger problem. I don't know how to let people close to me. I don't know how to let people in. I don't know how to slow down. I am one speed. And if you're in my way, you're getting bulldozed over. In a lot of ways, I just wasn't a pleasant person to be around because I was so deeply wounded and insecure. And it was all wrapped up in this, body of a 6'2", 19-inch neck, strong safety. And who learned to stay anytime he felt vulnerable, learned how to deploy anger to recontrol a situation. And so I think all of that, and I say all of that because it just amplified the experience, right? It amplified the pressure and amplified the intensity. It amplified every dynamic of not just throughout West Point, but also, in the military and leading into the NFL. And it was there in the NFL after, making a childhood dream come true, where I realized that the way that I'm doing life, like the perfecting the facade, disconnecting from anything happening within myself, pushing it to the side and just driving forward at all costs, like it reached and allowed me to reach a high level of success, but it was destroying my life. And, there is a certain type of pain that surfaces when one accomplishes the dream, but realize that they are just as empty, if not even more empty than when they started. And in the middle of my NFL career, I didn't know how to handle that pain. So I started to cope with it in really unhealthy ways, a lot of substance abuse. Yep. And I remember waking up one morning, missed practice. I was out all night partying, and I was looking at my bedside table, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. And I saw the mixtures of uppers and downers and realized that I was actively trying to disappear. I felt so trapped, so stuck, and so disconnected. I was just actively trying to disappear. And it wasn't that scared me. It was the fact that I felt relieved by that. That scared me. Yeah. And it was a moment that it allowed me to take the real gravity of that situation in. And I realized that if something doesn't change and change soon, it's only a matter of time before my parents get a phone call notifying them that their son is no longer with them. And that's when I had to make the hardest decision of my life. And what felt like weakness, what felt like failure, what felt like giving up, I decided to hang up my cleats and walk away from it all. And I say all of that because now when I look back, I look at the depth of joy in my life today. I look at the beautiful family that I have, the
Yeah.
nourishing relationship that I have with my partner, just, the friendships, the community, the work that I get to do in the world.
Yeah.
I look back and I realize, my God, none of this would exist if I didn't have the courage to walk away from what no longer works. If I didn't have the courage to choose vulnerability, to embody authenticity and say, hey, I need help.
Yeah. And the other part that I feel strongly about, and it's just unfortunate for all of our fellow veterans that have taken their life. But one of those things, until you're put on that path that you were meant to be, you're not going to find true happiness. It doesn't matter whether you're living what you thought you were supposed to be. I wanted to be a business owner when I got out, and I owned a trucking company and I made good money, and I was probably the worst in my attitude that I ever had been. I just wasn't happy. I didn't enjoy what I thought I wanted to do. And now I don't make any money, and I am doing what I love and I enjoy it. I mean, I've never been happier than what I'm doing right now. And I think it's just one of those things that eventually, if you just stick around, you're going to find where you're going to be.
Yeah.
And that was the path to put you where you were supposed to be.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
And once you get there, it's just all that pressure is gone.
Yeah. You just realize that the person who you are today is not always the same person that's going to, allow you to get to where you want to be tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so in so many ways, like, we are a culture that is obsessed with, and this is the heartbeat of my work as a keynote speaker inside of like high performing, high achieving organizations. It's like everyone I know, and just to include like military veterans, like I don't have to tell any veteran how to work hard.
Yeah.
I don't have to give you, a new sales strategy or a new technique, or, I don't have to tell you how to, be more grateful and more determined in your life. Like, you all have like mastered what I like to call chasing the external edge. And we are a culture that's obsessed with the external edge, the do more, be more, achieve more, try harder, hold on tighter mentality. But like, in a world that simply refuses to slow down, in a world where the pressures and demands are growing heavier by the day, like that way, it's just not sustainable. And oftentimes when it's not sustainable, what happens is it mirrors back to us either one of two things. One, you're not working hard enough, so do more.
Yep.
Or two, something is broken in you.
Yep.
And either way, those two stories that we tell ourselves reflects back an inner inadequacy. And we start to find ourselves, what I like to call soul tired. We're the type of tired that more sleep doesn't solve.
Yep.
And so much of my work is like, hey, what if the pressure and what if the moments of pain and discomfort are not an obstacle to overcome? What if they're actually the invitation to become somebody new? And this is the real work that we have to undergo, is the inner evolution to emerge out on the other side, a new person that is capable of sustaining the pace that you're running, that's capable of stepping into greater success. Like, this is what, like, I'm going on a little tangent here, and I hope you don't mind, a little rant. Like, everybody wants more success, but the truth is, what they don't understand, and this is what I had to learn the hard way, is the success that you want in your life is going to require more visibility. It's going to require you to show up in a way that's going to, allow people to see you in ways you've never been seen before. And that is riddled with vulnerability. It is riddled with uncertainty and unpredictability. And so here you are wanting more success, but do you even have the capacity to hold that success? And so there oftentimes has to be this internal evolution, this internal transformation that has to take place within us to become the type of person that can actually not just step into greater success, but fucking enjoy it. Yeah. Enjoy it. Like, that's a radical statement to make in our world today.
It is. Yeah. You at the end of the day, you will. It is, like you said, especially for soldiers, it is hard. Most of us get that chill down our back when somebody says thank you for your service.
Yeah.
And now you're talking about being on a stage and being vulnerable, and that is probably scarier than any combat situation. You know, I can
Yeah.
only imagine.
Yeah, that's where the magic is, man. If again, I don't have to teach anybody how to work harder, but I do have to teach people how to let go. I
Yeah.
don't have to teach anybody how to grit their teeth and bury their head and drive forward, but I do have to teach you how to ask for help. You know,
Yep.
I don't have to teach anybody how to be more persevering, but I do have to teach people how to see that vulnerability is not weakness. Like it
Yep.
is the greatest definition of strength. And you have survived a hell of a life to get to where you are standing today. Don't you for one moment think you can't do hard shit, because
Yeah.
you were made to do hard shit. The hard shit just looks a little different now.
Yep.
Right? It's not about just like holding it all together and pushing through so you can survive another day to come home from a deployment. Now the hard shit looks like admitting that you're feeling a little vulnerable in your life and there's a lot of internal discomfort happening and the pressure is building, and it's not a reflection of your inadequacy. It just means that you've outgrown your current way of life and you're being invited to do something even greater. Like the hard is the same. It's just manifesting in a different way.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right. And I think that's one of the reasons why soldiers in themselves are so hard to help, because just when you think they hit rock bottom and you say, "Are you done digging this hole? Are you ready to get help?" He looks at you and says, "Hold my beer. I can dig more." You know, and you're like, "Man, when are you going to get it?"
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But it takes by
It
that
does,
time
man.
of that hardest thing you just said, and that's to show
Yeah.
that you need help and that you are vulnerable.
Yeah.
And like,
This is why you're doing God's work. You having these conversations. I'm being serious, man. Like I think what's going to save the world are the creative, or the storytellers. Like are the people who are willing to embody authenticity, especially in the world of AI right now. Like, man, there's like everything is at our fingertips in terms of like AI and techniques and strategies and software. Like we have it all. The real advantage now is how human you can be. Like how real, how honest, how authentic can you be? That's what's going to save your life. None of this shit out here is going to save your life. And so like I strongly believe like the world will be saved by the creators, the poets, the writers, the storytellers, those who are willing to risk being fully seen in the fullness of humanity and saying, "Hey, we're okay. Like it's even better on the other side. Come join me." And you're doing that work.
Well, I appreciate that. I know we're getting to the top of the hour here. I want to.
I talk too much.
No, you're good. You're good, man. I got to fun. I like to always end things on a little bit of a fun note. Let me ask you this question. If you could pick one person, living or dead, who would you like to have dinner with?
So easy. The Rock.
Really? I didn't.
Hell yeah.
Okay. All right.
Listen, not only is he a bald man, but you know, us bald men, we got to stick together. I think he is just like, I don't know. He built something special, and I feel like, you know, I don't know the ins and outs of his internal life, but the truth is he's not bleeding all over people like we see a lot of times with these big names, right? Like he's not getting canceled. Maybe that's to come. Maybe that happens, but I think he's doing something right. And when I look at The Rock, and listen, I know he gets paid to act his entire life, but when I read about him and I like really look at his life, it just feels like it's all fully aligned. Like he is not trying to do anything. He's just being himself. And in being himself, he has created a world full of abundance. And I think there's something so profound that we all can learn from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And he does a lot of good stuff behind the scenes. That
so much good stuff, right?
Yeah.
And how can you not love the little rants between him and Kevin Hart? Like
they are great. They are great. I wish those would come back.
They need to come back.
The new Kevin Hart
to come back.
Yeah. So you come home from a hard day of training and everything else. What is your go-to meal? What is DoorDash bringing you?
What is DoorDash bringing me? Honestly, that all depends on my mood. I am like, you know, I'm a Texas boy at heart. And so my love language is just steak and potatoes.
Yeah.
But I'm more of like a sweet potato guy now.
Okay.
Yeah. And so you can never not make me smile by offering me a steak. And so I don't really DoorDash those, but you know, that's like probably what I'm throwing on the grill for sure.
Sounds great, man. Well, Caleb, I appreciate you coming on the show. I had a great time, and man, people need to go check out, listen to you talk, because you have definitely got it down. There's some wisdom that people can take, and I appreciate you taking your time out of your busy schedule to join us. And if you want to take a quick minute and tell everybody where they can find you and anything coming up, now's your chance.
Awesome. Yeah, just mostly can find me at www.calebcampbell.me. Some C-list actor that's unemployed stole calebcampbell.com. And so I got calebcampbell.me. On social media, I'm mostly active on Instagram. That's just Caleb_Campbell. And you can also find me on LinkedIn, but that's where I spend most of my time. So come say hi.
All right. Well, guys, I appreciate everybody that listens. And again, Caleb, I appreciate it. Have a great time. I'll go and throw the exit video out, and I'll be right with you.
Thanks, boss.